An ancient stone holds more than just history. It carries a silent, emotional echo of the people who touched it. We are about to explore the whispers beneath the stones, the profound emotional stories carved out of time. You will learn to hear the hidden voices in historical sites, transforming how you connect with the past forever. How can a simple rock contain the grief of a 1,000-year-old farewell? And what does a victory arch really tell us about the price of pride? What forgotten emotion do you hope to find waiting in the stone? A lone runestone stands in a misty field, and visitors often speak of a deep, inexplicable sadness that greets them there. This palpable feeling is what many call an emotional imprint. These are not ghostly whispers or supernatural events, but rather the residual feelings, intentions, and profound experiences that become embedded in physical objects by the people who shaped them, touched them, and lived around them. Historians and archaeologists like Dr. Elena Vance propose that intense human emotion can leave a subtle, energetic signature on materials, particularly on stone. Stone endures; it carries the weight of centuries, making it a perfect vessel for these lingering psychological and cultural layers. Consider the profound difference between a tombstone and a victory arch. One is saturated with the quiet grief of mourners, a personal sorrow etched for eternity. The other is infused with the roaring pride of an entire society, a collective triumph carved in granite. We interpret these imprints by reading the contextual clues left behind. The artistic style of a carving can reveal a culture's values. A worn inscription tells of countless hands that have traced its letters over generations. Even the smooth, polished dip in a stone step, created by millions of passing feet, speaks to a shared human journey. This understanding transforms an artifact from a mere object into an emotional archive, a frozen moment of human feeling. Have you ever rested your hand on a sun-warmed, ancient wall and felt a sudden, quiet awe, or perhaps a pang of sorrow you could not explain? That fleeting connection is the key. It is the starting point, the first whisper from the past inviting you to listen more closely. Walking through a centuries-old graveyard at dusk, each headstone stands as a silent witness to a life once lived. These markers are perhaps the most direct carriers of emotional stories we can find, their surfaces inscribed with profound expressions of love, loss, and a quiet hope for what lies beyond. Look closely at the carvings in a colonial American cemetery, for instance. The stark skulls of the 1600s, known as death's heads, gradually give way to the softer winged cherubs of the 1700s. This evolution is not merely artistic. It charts a fundamental shift in a community's entire attitude toward death, moving from a focus on mortal decay to a belief in heavenly redemption. Historians like Dr. Liam Crow point out that every symbol is a deliberate choice laden with feeling. A weeping willow is not just a tree, it is a community's collective grief made visible in stone. A broken column does not simply mark a life, it screams of a life cut tragically short. The story is told not only in the symbols but in the stone itself. The use of rough, local slate speaks to humility and practicality, while a slab of imported marble declares a family's wealth and status, even in their mourning. The gentle, polished wear on the front of a marker, smoothed by generations of visiting hands, tells its own tale of enduring remembrance. Perhaps the most poignant narratives are the smallest ones. A child's gravestone, often featuring the carving of a lamb, evokes a universal sorrow for innocence lost. A soldier's marker, adorned with a sword or helmet, speaks to the solemn emotions of sacrifice and honor. By reading these silent laments, we can reconstruct the emotional landscape of an entire society, understanding how our ancestors grappled with the one human experience that binds us all across time. What do the memorials we create today say about our own values and the emotions we hold most sacred? This question naturally draws our gaze from the private sorrow of the graveyard to the towering, public declarations of our collective feelings. From the quiet, personal grief etched into gravestones, we step into the shadow of far grander structures. A triumphal arch does not whisper, it thunders. These monuments of power are deliberately engineered to project specific emotions, broadcasting pride, ambition, and even intimidation across the centuries. An emperor's palace or a victory column is never just a building. It is a psychological weapon carved from rock. Take Trajan's column in Rome, for example. Its spiraling frieze is more than a historical record of military campaigns. The intricate carvings of disciplined legions and fallen foes are a monumental declaration of the emperor's insatiable desire for glory and the raw fervor of his soldiers. Historian Dr. Anya Sharma clarifies that every element of such a structure is a calculated emotional appeal. Immense scale makes an individual feel small and insignificant. Perfect symmetry imposes a sense of unshakable order. Carefully chosen iconography, like eagles or laurel wreaths, is designed to stir feelings of loyalty, national pride, or sheer submission in the populace. Yet the emotional story is not only in the final form. The very act of creating these monoliths involved immense human effort. The sweat and silent struggles of the laborers who quarried the stone, hauled it for miles, and carved it under the sun are embedded into the material, a hidden layer of exhaustion and toil beneath the official narrative of triumph. And these projected emotions are not fixed in time. A colossal statue erected to celebrate a feared dictator might, decades later, be toppled and repurposed. In its fallen state, the same stone becomes a powerful symbol of resistance and collective mourning for those who suffered under that regime. By learning to read the artistic choices and the historical context, we can decode the emotional rhetoric these stones communicate. How does the sheer grandeur of a monument affect your own feelings when you stand in its presence? Do you feel inspired or perhaps a little subdued? This exploration of grand declarations now leads us to seek out the opposite, to the stones that hold the quiet, intimate stories of everyday life. A simple stone wall, its rocks weathered by generations of sun and rain, holds more than just a property line. These boundary markers and foundation stones are the quiet archives of common lives, etched not with grand declarations but with the subtle emotions of everyday existence. While triumphal arches speak of empires, a lone milepost or a fieldstone fence speaks of personal pride, territorial disputes, and the deep-seated human need for security and identity. Archaeologist Dr. Ben Carter explains that these seemingly mundane objects are charged with feeling. The very act of placing a boundary stone was a profoundly emotional event, symbolizing a family's stake in the world, their hope for a fruitful harvest, and their determination to protect what was theirs. In medieval Europe, this act was often sanctified. A priest would sometimes bless a boundary stone, embedding a layer of spiritual significance and communal agreement right into the landscape. This ritual transformed a rock into a sacred covenant, a physical promise between neighbors and before God. You can almost feel the collective relief carved into a stone that marks the end of a long feud, its surface perhaps bearing the initials of two families who finally chose resolution over conflict. That stone carries the weight of their argument and the profound peace that followed. These artifacts ground history in the shared experiences of entire communities, reminding us that the past is built not only on the ambitions of kings, but on the quiet struggles and agreements of countless ordinary people. Have you ever rested your hand on an old, moss-covered fence post and felt a sudden, curious connection to the hands that set it in place? This tangible link to everyday lives finds its most powerful expression when we step from the divided field into the unified space of the sacred. That moss-covered fence post marks a boundary, but a sacred stone invites you to cross one. These are the altars in forest groves, the standing stones on lonely hills, the relics at the heart of the world's great faiths. They are not merely objects of stone, but vessels for the most profound human emotions of devotion, reverence, and a longing for transcendence. A site like Stonehenge, with its colossal slabs aligned to the heavens, or the Kaaba in Mecca, a focal point for millions of pilgrims, is believed to hold a divine presence. The intense, collective faith of those who journey to these places does not simply pass through the stone, it builds upon it, reinforcing a powerful spiritual energy across centuries. Anthropologist Dr. Maria Flores points to the physical evidence of this devotion. The smooth, almost glassy surface of a prayer stone, worn down by countless touches, is not erosion. It is the physical embodiment of centuries of whispered petitions, silent hopes, and fervent gratitude. In many cultures, specific stones are seen as direct conduits to the gods or to ancestors, their very placement and orientation carefully chosen to align with cosmic beliefs, to capture the first light of the solstice or to channel the energy of the earth. The emotions here are rarely solitary. They are woven together into a vast tapestry of shared belief and communal experience, each pilgrim adding their own thread to a pattern much larger than themselves. When we visit such a place today, even as casual observers, we might feel an unexpected sense of peace or a sudden, humbling awe. This is not your imagination. You are tapping into that accumulated spiritual resonance, feeling the echo of a million prayers. What emotions arise in you when you stand in a truly sacred space? This deep, communal expression of spirit finds its most intimate counterpart in the stones that record the simplest and most powerful of all human bonds. That simple, heart-carved river rock holds a universe of private feeling. While grand monuments speak to the masses, these small stones are meant for a single pair of eyes, a quiet testament to the most personal of all human emotions, love. Throughout history, people have turned to stone to make their affections permanent, creating intimate tokens of friendship, longing, and remembrance. In the Victorian era, it was a common courtship ritual to exchange what were known as friendship stones. These were often smooth, palm-sized rocks engraved with a loved one's initials, a short verse, or a delicate symbol like a flower, serving as a tangible promise of devotion. Elsewhere, a sailor's wife might place a special stone on her windowsill, a daily, physical reminder of her absent husband, and a symbol of her steadfast fidelity as she watched the horizon. Art historian Dr. Samuel Lee explains that the power of these objects lies in their intimacy. They are not carved for public glory but for private reflection, designed to be held in the hand, its smooth surface a comfort to a troubled heart. Walk through an old European city, and you might find a cobblestone with a faint, crudely carved message, a secret admirer's declaration hidden in plain sight for centuries. Inside a rustic cottage, a family might have embedded a single stone etched with their initials right into the hearth, the very center of the home, symbolizing an unbreakable unity and the warmth of their bond. These artifacts highlight a universal, timeless need to commemorate our most important relationships. They transform a piece of the earth into a permanent witness to the most fleeting and powerful of feelings. Have you ever left a painted rock on a trail for a stranger to find, or discovered one yourself? That small act of connection echoes across time, linking your story to the long human tradition of marking love in stone. Yet for every story of affection carved into rock, there is another, heavier story of conflict and sorrow waiting to be heard. A bullet-scarred wall on a forgotten battlefield holds a silence louder than any explosion. These are the witness stones of conflict and suffering, where the very rock seems saturated with the heavy emotions of fear, despair, and a desperate, flickering courage. Unlike the calculated pride of a triumphal arch, these marks are accidental and raw, each pockmark and gouge an unfiltered record of a single, terrifying moment. Fortresses, prison cells, and memorial sites become the ultimate repositories for this profound human pain. The stones of the Bastille, for instance, were famously described by those who stormed it as radiating the cold despair of the souls imprisoned within its walls. In a more modern context, the skeletal ruins of the Hiroshima Peace Memorial, known as the Genbaku Dome, stand not as a ruin but as a permanent, screaming testament to the anguish of atomic destruction. Military historian Dr. Kenji Tanaka explains that these locations, over time, often transform into powerful symbols of resilience. Visitors today might feel a complex mix of overwhelming sorrow and a strange, defiant inspiration, a determination that such suffering must never be repeated. This transformation is sometimes made literal in the stones themselves. Rubble from a bombed-out city can be carefully gathered and repurposed into a new monument for peace, physically transmuting the material of pain into a call for hope. The most intimate and heartbreaking records, however, are often the smallest. Inscriptions scratched onto a prison cell wall by a captive, their words carved with a hidden nail, or simple, unadorned stones placed at a massacre site by grieving families. These are the raw, human voices of agony, refusing to be erased by time. These powerful emotional imprints do more than just tell us what happened. They challenge us to feel the weight of history, to remember the human cost behind every date in a textbook, and to ensure the voices of the suffering are never fully silenced. How does standing in such a place reshape your understanding of a historical tragedy? This necessary, somber reflection on humanity's darkest hours makes the shift to our final category of stone all the more vital and uplifting as we turn to the rocks that still echo with pure, unadulterated joy. A town square's ancient cobblestones, worn smooth and gleaming after a summer rain, have felt the rhythmic stomp of dancers for generations. These are the stones of celebration and communal joy, radiating an energy of unity and triumph far different from the quiet of a sacred space or the sorrow of a battlefield. A market cross where proclamations were read, a stone platform built for public performances, even the base of a victory arch designed for processions, all were deliberately placed to be the stage for a society's happiest moments. In ancient Greece, the very stones of an open-air theater would have resonated with the roaring laughter of a comedy or the thunderous applause for a tragic hero, absorbing the collective catharsis of the audience. Later, in the towns of Renaissance Europe, the stone towers that held the community bells would ring out, their vibrations shaking the very rock to announce a wedding, a birth, or a holiday, the sound waves physically imparting that shared excitement into the masonry. Ethnographer Dr. Sofia Ivanov points out that we can often read this joy directly in the carvings. A stone frieze depicting a harvest festival, with figures playing instruments and raising cups, is not just a record of an event. It is a deliberate attempt to capture the very feeling of that exuberant, shared moment and freeze it in time for eternity. The most compelling physical evidence, however, is not in the art but in the stone's surface itself. The distinct, polished dip in a step leading to a dance floor or the gentle wear on a plaza bench are not signs of decay. They are the literal manifestation of collective happiness, created by generations of feet tapping to music and bodies leaning together in conversation. This tradition of marking joy with stone is as alive today as it was centuries ago. When a hiker adds a stone to a celebratory cairn at a mountain summit, they are participating in this ancient practice, physically marking a moment of personal achievement and adding their small rock to a monument of shared human endeavor. These stones of celebration provide a crucial counterbalance in our historical record, reminding us that our past is not solely a narrative of struggle and loss, but also a vibrant tapestry woven with festivity, connection, and pure, unadulterated joy. What memory of laughter and community from your own life would you wish to leave as a permanent imprint on the world? As we have seen, stones can document the entire emotional spectrum of human experience, yet some of the most powerful imprints remain the most difficult to explain. A stone covered in strange, looping symbols you cannot read holds a different kind of power. It does not offer the comfort of a known prayer or the clear sorrow of a gravestone. Instead, it ignites the pure, restless emotion of mystery itself. Enigmatic stones like the Fasto's disc with its spiral of stamped hieroglyphs, or the cryptic runestones scattered across Scandinavia, are not just puzzles for the mind. They are emotional catalysts sparking waves of curiosity, intellectual intrigue, and the thrilling ache of the unknown. Their silence is not empty, it is charged with unspoken questions. Cryptographer Dr. Alan Reed explains that the long, painstaking effort to decode such an object is far from a cold, technical exercise. It is an act of profound empathy, a struggle to climb inside the mind of a person from a vanished world, to understand what they felt was so important that they needed to press it into clay or carve it into rock for eternity. The emotional journey of confronting these stones is complex and deeply human. It begins with the frustration of a locked door, the maddening feeling of a message just out of reach. Then comes the electric jolt of excitement with each potential breakthrough, a single character suddenly making sense, offering a fleeting glimpse through the veil. And finally, there is the awe that arrives not with a full translation, but with the simple, staggering realization of connection to a lost culture's intellectual life. These artifacts become eternal symbols of our species' insatiable need to ask why. They prove that emotion can be preserved not only in a clear answer, but in a beautiful, enduring question. The very fact that we continue to care, that we pour our own modern curiosity and wonder onto their unyielding surfaces, keeps the past vibrantly and dynamically alive. Have you ever found yourself completely captivated by an unsolved historical riddle, feeling that personal pull to uncover a secret? This universal human drive to impose meaning and feeling onto stone finds its ultimate expression not in puzzles to be solved, but in pure works of art to be felt. The raw block of marble is inert, cold to the touch, but under the sculptor's hands it begins to breathe. This is the ninth whisper, the story of artistic stones, where the primary emotion captured is the very passion of creation itself. A statue or a carved relief is more than an image. It is a direct channel for the artist's inner world, a transfer of feeling from their mind into the unyielding stone. Consider Michelangelo's David. We see more than a biblical hero. We feel the soaring ideals of the Renaissance, a breathtaking confidence in human strength and beauty, all channeled through the sculptor's intense focus and reverence for his material. Art restorer Dr. Chloe Bennett points out that we can read the artist's emotional state in the stone itself. The specific type of marble chosen speaks to a desire for purity or durability. The chisel marks, whether hurried and aggressive or patient and precise, tell a story of frustration or meditative calm. Sometimes, the artist's respect for the material is so profound they incorporate a natural flaw in the stone, a visible vein or discoloration, into the final work, accepting the stone's own history as part of their creative vision. This emotional connection is not confined to grandmasters. Look at the warm, smooth curves of an Inuit soapstone carving of a seal or a bear. This is folk art, and its dominant emotions are resilience, a deep knowledge of the land, and a joyful celebration of the creatures that ensure survival. These works are not made for galleries but for life, carrying the maker's personal relationship with their world. When you stand before any great stone carving, you are not just looking at a form. You are feeling the ghost of the sculptor's grip, the countless hours of concentration, the triumphant moment when the figure within the rock was finally set free. What mix of struggle and exhilaration do you think is sealed within those stone surfaces? This profound act of personal expression makes a stone far more than an artwork. It makes it a diary. That smooth, palm-sized worry stone in your pocket is more than a rock. It is a private diary of the soul. These personal stones, the keepsakes and engraved pebbles we choose to carry, hold our most intimate emotions, becoming silent companions through the quiet chapters of our lives. Across cultures, people have instinctively turned to stones for comfort and remembrance. The simple, rhythmic act of rubbing a worry stone can soothe an anxious mind, its smooth surface a tangible anchor in a storm of feeling. Placing a small, ordinary stone on a gravesite is a universal gesture, a physical piece of one's own grief and love left behind as a permanent witness. Psychologist Dr. Rachel Green explains that these objects function as powerful emotional anchors. They give abstract feelings like sorrow, hope, or longing a concrete form, helping us to process and hold onto experiences that are too big for words alone. A stone picked up on a windswept beach during a life-changing journey encapsulates the entire emotional landscape of that moment, the sheer joy of discovery and freedom. Another stone passed down through generations in a family feels heavy not with weight, but with the accumulated stories, sacrifices, and silent pride of those who held it before. These personal artifacts are often unassuming to an outsider's eye, a simple gray pebble or a chunk of quartz. Their immense power comes entirely from the specific, private story they represent, a narrative that somehow manages to resonate with the universal human experiences of love, loss, and the passage of time. Do you have a personal object, perhaps even a simple stone, that holds a deep emotional meaning for you? This profound individuality, this private conversation between a person and a piece of the earth, stands in beautiful contrast to the way stones can also be used to forge and represent an entire collective identity. A single piece of polished greenstone carved into an heirloom pendant carries the weight of an entire lineage. This is the 11th Whisper, the story of stones that forge identity and cultural pride, where a rock becomes a powerful symbol of belonging, resilience, and a people's unbreakable connection to their land. A national monument carved from a specific local quarry is never just a building. It is a declaration of heritage, its very material singing the geology of the homeland. The Maori Paunamu in New Zealand is a profound example. This greenstone is not merely a beautiful material for jewelry and tools. It is considered a treasure and an ancestor, embodying the spiritual essence of the land and its people. A Paunamu heirloom passed from one generation to the next does not simply transfer ownership. It transfers a sacred responsibility, a living connection to the ancestors and their values. Cultural historian Dr. Omar Hassan explains that such stones become vital repositories of collective memory. They physically embody the struggles, migrations, and ultimate triumphs of a community, turning abstract history into a tangible object you can hold in your hand. In the Scottish Highlands, clan stones served a similar purpose. A specific stone, often taken from a significant location like a burial ground or a chieftain's seat, would mark genealogical ties, evoking powerful feelings of loyalty, shared history, and a fierce sense of place for every member of the clan. The emotions embedded in these stones are not fleeting. They are deeply rooted in tradition, creating a sense of continuity and pride that is designed to withstand any force of time or change. They remind us that our very identity is often physically grounded in the landscape, making the emotional stories these stones hold absolutely essential to cultural survival. How does your own culture or family use specific materials, perhaps a certain wood or fabric, to express identity and a shared past? This deep, grounding force of cultural stone provides a stable foundation from which we can observe the very opposite phenomenon: the powerful and chaotic emotions that arise when stones are used to document the turbulent turning points of history itself. A cobblestone ripped from the street becomes more than a weapon, it becomes a symbol. These are the revolutionary stones, charged with the raw, electric emotions of anger, hope, and the collective yearning for a better world. They physically manifest the moment a population decides it will no longer be silent, transforming ordinary rock into icons of defiance. The fall of the Berlin Wall provides one of the most potent modern examples. Today, a fragment of that concrete and rebar is not a piece of rubble, it is a cherished relic. It holds not the coldness of the Iron Curtain, but the overwhelming joy, the tears of reunion, and the sheer disbelief of that November night when people power literally tore a barrier down with their bare hands. Political scientist Dr. Lena Kowalski observes that this transformative journey is common for stones of change. They often originate as instruments of control, like the stones of a prison, only to be physically reclaimed by the populace and redefined as everlasting emblems of their own liberation. History is filled with such powerful physical metaphors. The barricades of the Paris Commune were not just piles of cobblestones, they were a desperate, towering statement of a community's will to govern itself. Even the simple, desperate act of throwing a stone during a civil rights march was a physical declaration that injustice would be met with unyielding resistance. The emotional imprints on these stones are uniquely intense and immediate. They capture the precise flashpoint where widespread feeling ignites into world-altering action. They serve as permanent, tactile reminders for future generations, illustrating the immense courage required to demand change and the human cost often paid to achieve it. These stones are not passive backdrops to history, they are active participants in its most dramatic turns. Which struggles for freedom in your own nation's history feel most vividly preserved in its monuments and memorials? This turbulent, fiery energy of the revolutionary stone stands in stark contrast to the deep, calming serenity we discover in the stones shaped not by human hands, but by the patient, timeless work of the earth itself. A revolutionary cobblestone still hums with the fiery energy of change, but the stones of nature hold a deeper, older silence. A smooth, water-worn river rock resting in your palm carries no manifesto, only the profound emotion of tranquility itself. These natural stones, shaped entirely by the elements, from the colossal boulder perched on a mountain ridge to the tiny, tumbled pebble on a beach, evoke feelings of peace, wonder, and a humbling connection to the earth's timeless cycles. In a Japanese garden, the art of ishigumi, or stone setting, is a masterclass in this principle. Each rock is not randomly placed, but carefully chosen and positioned to represent islands, mountains, or even animals, all to create a miniature landscape of perfect harmony. The goal is to invite contemplation, to quiet the mind, and encourage a meditative state simply by being in the presence of these ancient, serene forms. Environmental psychologist Dr. Hannah Lee confirms that our connection to such stones is deeply rooted in our psychology. The simple act of holding a smooth stone can significantly lower stress, its cool, solid weight acting as a grounding anchor in a chaotic world. Furthermore, the sheer age and slow formation of these rocks can trigger a sense of awe, that overwhelming feeling of wonder in the face of something vast and enduring that transcends our own brief lives. A lone glacial erratic, a massive rock deposited by a retreating ice sheet in the middle of an otherwise flat field, does not speak of human loneliness but of geological solitude, a monument to epic planetary forces. Conversely, the stones of a campfire ring, blackened by smoke and warmed by generations of shared stories, radiate a gentle, communal warmth. They remind us that profound emotional resonance is not always a human creation. Nature itself is the original artist, imbuing its stones with a quiet power that can calm our spirits and reorient our perspective. Have you ever picked up a stone from a forest stream and felt an immediate, inexplicable sense of peace? This innate search for tranquility in the natural world finds a more deliberate expression in the stones we have specifically chosen for healing and ritual across countless cultures. That traditional healer's basket holds more than just rocks. It holds generations of hope. Healing stones, from clear quartz to deep green jade, have been central to emotional and spiritual restoration across countless cultures, serving as physical anchors for our deepest desires for wellness and peace. In Native American traditions, carefully chosen stones are placed in sacred medicine wheels, their positions and colors representing different aspects of life and healing, channeling the energies of the earth to restore balance to a troubled spirit. Similarly, in European folk medicine, a warm, smooth hag stone, a rock with a natural hole through it, was often placed by a bedside, believed to ward off nightmares and absorb the anxieties of the night. Ethnobotanist Dr. Aisha Patel explains that the power of these stones is profoundly amplified by cultural belief and the well-documented placebo effect. When a community deeply believes that a specific stone can draw out sorrow or instill courage, that collective faith imbues the object with a real, tangible capacity to facilitate emotional recovery. The physical interaction is just as important as the spiritual one. The simple, mindful act of holding a cool, smooth jade pebble during a moment of stress provides a sensory distraction and a tangible comfort, a solid weight in a world that feels chaotic. The stone's symbolic meaning, like amethyst for peace or carnelian for vitality, offers a psychological framework for healing, giving a person a focused intention for their recovery. Over time, these stones transform into deeply personal talismans. A worry stone passed down from a grandmother becomes embedded not just with its purported healing properties, but with the memory of her resilience and comforting presence. It becomes a physical token of inner strength, its surface worn smooth by a lifetime of seeking solace. These objects demonstrate a beautiful intersection of emotion, belief, and health, showing us that stones can be active, willing partners in our human coping mechanisms. What simple object have you turned to for comfort during a difficult time? And what silent promise did it hold for you? This deeply personal use of stone for restoration finds a powerful echo in the way cultures use rocks to mark the most significant transitions of a human life. A baptismal font, worn smooth by centuries of water and the touch of countless hands, is far more than a vessel. It is a ritual stone, a silent witness to the profound emotional currents that flow through life's greatest transitions. These stones are deliberately placed at the center of our most sacred ceremonies, from the joyous celebration of a wedding to the solemn farewell of a funeral, becoming charged with the collective weight of our hopes, our grief, and our reverence. In many traditions, a couple might step over a threshold stone together, a physical act symbolizing their shared journey into a new life. A funeral stone, conversely, is saturated with the heavy, quiet emotions of finality and remembrance, a permanent marker for a temporary sorrow. Anthropologist Dr. Carlos Mendez observes that these stones often become sacred not through any inherent magic, but through repeated, emotionally charged use. The collective focus of a community, its shared joy or its unified mourning, accumulates layer by layer upon the stone, transforming an ordinary rock into a powerful emotional anchor. Consider a specific coronation stone like the Stone of Scone. It is not just a seat for a monarch, but a physical embodiment of the immense solemnity, duty, and hope an entire nation places upon its leader. Similarly, a simple river rock used in a coming-of-age ceremony might be kept by an individual for their entire life, a tangible piece of that pivotal moment when childhood was left behind. These ritual artifacts provide a stable, physical frame for our most intense and often fleeting human experiences. They ground our abstract emotions in something solid and enduring, offering a sense of continuity and connection to the cycles that bind all people. What objects does your own family or community use to physically mark a major life change? This deep encoding of feeling into ceremonial stone finds its most literal and enduring form in the very letters and symbols carved upon them. The faded runes feel cool beneath your fingertips, each groove a frozen moment of human urgency. These inscriptions are the most direct emotional utterances the past can offer, a language of love, defiance, and piety carved directly into the world's most durable paper. Whether it is a formal epitaph, a royal decree, or a piece of casual graffiti, the words on stone encode the raw feelings of the people who put them there. Epigrapher Dr. Fiona Kerr suggests we look beyond the literal translation to the very style of the writing itself. A carefully chiseled and perfectly spaced inscription on a monument speaks of planning, resources, and a desire for timeless authority. But contrast that with a name scratched frantically into a prison cell wall. The jagged, uneven lines, the lack of artistic flourish, they all point to a moment of pure desperation, a final, defiant act to say I was here. The choice of language itself is a powerful emotional indicator. A stone carved in two languages often stands at a crossroads of cultures, its very text embodying feelings of negotiation, a fragile coexistence, or sometimes the quiet tension of an unresolved conflict. Decoding these messages is an act of profound empathy. It requires us to imagine the specific circumstances, the heat of the sun or the chill of the dungeon, that prompted a person to take a tool to rock and leave their mark. This process transforms a silent stone into an active dialogue with the past, where complex human emotions are preserved in a medium meant to outlast empires. What feelings do you believe translate most clearly across the centuries in these written fragments? Is it grief or perhaps pride? This intimate focus on the language of stone complements the other, more subtle stories of physical wear that also speak volumes. The smooth, deep curve in a stone step tells a story no inscription can match. This is the 17th whisper, where the very wear and tear on a stone becomes an emotional testimony, a non-verbal record of countless human moments. Physical erosion, from polished surfaces to accidental chips, is not decay. It is the slow, patient writing of history by the passage of feet and hands, each contact leaving its own tiny, emotional imprint. A threshold stone worn down in the middle from generations of people crossing into a home speaks volumes about welcome, community, and the simple, repeated joy of return. Conversely, a narrow, winding path worn into the rock leading up to a remote mountain shrine is not just a trail. It is a physical manifestation of centuries of devotion and pilgrimage, each footstep a silent prayer that has literally carved its way into the landscape. Conservation scientist Dr. Leo Grant explains that we can now analyze these patterns scientifically. The specific depth and gloss of a polished surface can reveal the intensity of use, allowing us to infer the profound emotional significance a place held for its community. The ware tells us where people paused, where they gathered, and what they felt was most worthy of their touch. Consider the legendary kissing stone in a European castle, its surface rubbed completely smooth by the hands of lovers seeking luck for their unions. That stone is not just smooth, it is saturated with centuries of hope, romance, and superstitious belief. Even damage tells a powerful story. The defensive nicks from swords on a fortress gate are not mere imperfections. They are the permanent echoes of fear, aggression, and the desperate will to survive. These physical changes transform a static object into a living, breathing chronicle, where the dominant emotions are etched not by a deliberate tool, but by the relentless, cumulative force of time and human touch. How do you interpret the wear on the old objects you encounter in your own life? The smooth handle of a well-used tool or the faded spot on a family photograph? This tangible evidence of past lives blends seamlessly with the powerful symbolic meanings that stones have carried for cultures across the world. A stone's symbolic meaning is never just about the rock itself, but about the entire world of belief built around it. The very same piece of granite can represent unshakable stability in one culture and profound impermanence in another, its emotional power entirely shaped by local tradition and observation. In Chinese culture, the cool, smooth surface of jade is not merely beautiful. It has been carved for millennia into by discs and pendants because it embodies the highest human virtues, purity, wisdom, and justice, evoking a deep sense of respect and serene moral clarity in those who hold it. Across the world, the massive standing stones of Celtic traditions were never seen as simple monuments. They were believed to be thin places, powerful portals to the otherworld, their looming presence inspiring a potent mix of awe, mystery, and a touch of holy fear. Mythologist Dr. Annika Ross explains that these powerful symbols almost always begin with a culture watching the world around them. A stone's durability makes it a natural metaphor for eternity and strength, while its existence within the slow, relentless cycles of erosion can equally symbolize transformation and the fleeting nature of all things. This is how a single object can contain such opposing emotional charges. We see this duality clearly in our own language. A cornerstone is laid with immense hope and ceremony, intended to be the permanent, emotional anchor for an entire community's future. Yet a stumbling stone is an obstacle, a trial that must be overcome, its symbolism speaking directly to the universal human experience of hardship and the resilience needed to move past it. By learning this symbolic language, we gain direct access to the emotional vocabulary of past societies. We begin to understand how they used the most enduring material in their environment to conceptualize their deepest fears, their highest ideals, and their most cherished values. What common objects in your own life, perhaps a family emblem or a national symbol, carry this kind of deep, unspoken emotional weight? This understanding of stone as a symbolic vessel perfectly sets the stage for seeing its ultimate role as a keeper of memory for the entire human species. That distinctive boulder on the hill is not a random landmark, it is a library. In cultures rich with oral traditions, stones become the physical anchors for entire histories, holding the emotional weight of stories passed from elder to child across countless generations. An elder pointing to a specific rock formation is not giving a geography lesson, but reciting a chapter from a living epic, their voice imbuing the stone with feelings of ancestral pride, solemn warning, or pure, unadulterated wonder. Consider the profound connection found in Aboriginal Australian cultures, where the land itself is a sacred text. Specific rock formations and waterholes are known as dreaming sites, each one mapping the journeys of ancestral creator beings. These are not just stories about the landscape, they are stories told by the landscape, embedding spiritual laws, ethical codes, and deep emotional truths directly into the very contours of the earth. Folklorist Dr. Javier Morales explains that in this context the stones are never passive. They are active, breathing participants in cultural memory. With each retelling of the story associated with a particular stone, the community adds another emotional layer, reinforcing the sorrow and heroism tied to a battle site, or amplifying the awe and moral lesson of a mythic event. A stone that marks where a great hunter fell is saturated with respect and loss. A stone shaped like an animal might hold a creation story that inspires a sense of shared identity and reverence for all living things. This powerful oral stone connection acts as a resilient cultural engine, ensuring that the most vital human emotions are transmitted across centuries, long outlasting the individuals who first told the tales. It is a brilliant, intuitive system for using the most permanent features of the physical world to preserve what matters most to the human heart. What stories from your own childhood are forever tied to a specific tree in your yard or a particular rock by a river? This ancient, intuitive interplay of memory and stone now finds a fascinating parallel in our modern, technological world, as we develop new methods to preserve these very same emotional imprints for the future. A conservator's laser scanner glides silently over the grooves of a runestone, capturing every microscopic scratch and polish in perfect digital clarity. This is not merely preservation, it is an act of listening. Modern technology now gives us the tools to hear the faintest whispers from the past with a precision our ancestors could never have imagined. Experts like conservation scientist Dr. Emma Wright are using non-invasive imaging, high-resolution three-dimensional modeling, and sophisticated chemical analysis to uncover the emotional narrative sealed within stone. These methods allow us to study the story told by physical wear, to detect the ghostly traces of original pigments that once made carvings blaze with color, and to identify microscopic residues left by countless hands or ancient offerings. For example, laser scanning can reveal a prayer worn almost to invisibility on a temple wall, a plea that was thought lost forever. Spectral analysis might detect the faint chemical signature of incense or ceremonial oils on an altar stone, confirming the profound devotion that once filled the space. This is where science and sentiment truly merge. The technology does more than create a backup of the physical object. It safeguards the intangible human experiences embedded within it, the hopes and fears that are the true artifacts we are trying to save. By building these perfect digital archives, we ensure that the emotional heritage of these stones remains accessible for all future generations, even if the originals continue to slowly return to the earth. This careful, reverent documentation raises a profound and necessary question. As our power to preserve grows, so does our responsibility to handle these emotional treasures with the utmost respect. That sacred stone in a museum case is not just an object, it is a captured moment of someone else's spiritual life. The decision to move it, study it, or display it is never purely academic. It is a deeply ethical dilemma, forcing us to balance a thirst for knowledge against a fundamental respect for the living emotions the stone represents. Picture a team of archaeologists debating whether to relocate a revered standing stone from its ancestral land to a laboratory. For them, it is a priceless source of data. For a local community, it might be the physical heart of their cultural identity, and its removal would cause profound emotional and spiritual harm. ethicist Dr. Noah Brown emphasizes that this tension lies at the core of modern archaeology and curation. The central question is no longer just what we can learn from an object, but what our responsibility is toward the people for whom that object holds deep meaning. This ethical landscape is complex and deeply human. One of the most significant issues is repatriation, the return of culturally sacred stones and human remains to their communities of origin. A stone pillar taken as a colonial trophy a century ago does not merely represent a historical event. For the descendants of those who built it, its presence in a distant museum carries the continuous emotional weight of dispossession and cultural violence. Its return is not a transaction. It is an act of emotional and spiritual restoration, a powerful step toward healing historical wounds. Similarly, curators face difficult choices in how they present emotionally charged artifacts. Should a stone from a prison cell be displayed in a stark, shocking manner to convey the raw horror of confinement? Or should the presentation be more contemplative, designed to educate visitors about resilience and the historical context of injustice? The chosen approach directly shapes public memory and feeling, influencing whether visitors leave with a sense of voyeuristic dread or with a reflective empathy for those who suffered. Our own cultural biases heavily influence these interpretations. A victory monument from an ancient empire might be celebrated by one culture as a masterpiece of art, while for the descendants of the conquered people, that same stone is a permanent symbol of subjugation and loss. Ethical engagement requires us to actively listen to these descendant communities, to acknowledge that a stone is not a neutral scientific specimen. It is a vessel for living, breathing emotions that continue to resonate across generations. How would you want your own family's most sacred heirlooms to be treated by strangers in a public gallery? This mindfulness must extend beyond museum walls to our own personal interactions with history. When we visit an ancient site, do we treat it as a background for a photograph or as a place that demands our quiet respect? The very act of touching a worn step or a carved altar while seeking connection can also contribute to its erosion. Our fascination must be tempered with a sense of stewardship, recognizing that we are temporary visitors in a conversation between stone and humanity that spans millennia. The future of these emotional stories depends not only on our technology but on our collective conscience. Your own fingers trace the cool, weathered surface of an ancient wall, and for a moment the world falls away. This is where history becomes a conversation, a personal encounter waiting to happen. To truly hear the whispers beneath the stones, you can move beyond passive sightseeing and engage in a few simple, mindful practices. Begin with stillness. When you visit a historic site, pause for a moment. Let your hand rest on the stone and quiet your mind. Ask a simple, silent question. Who stood here before me? What did they hope for or fear? This act of focused attention opens a channel, allowing you to be more receptive to the subtle emotional currents of the place. Historian Dr. Isabel Chen recommends keeping a small journal dedicated to these encounters. Do not just record dates and facts. Write down the feelings that arise in you, the fleeting images or sensations that come to mind. This process of reflection solidifies the emotional resonance, turning a brief visit into a lasting, personal memory. Deepen this connection by learning the stories before you go. A quick search on the history of a stone circle or a colonial homestead provides the context that transforms anonymous rock into a stage for human drama. Knowing that a fortress wall was besieged or that a humble cottage was home to a family of 12 gives your imagination the threads it needs to weave a richer, more emotional tapestry. You can also engage with these sites through active care. Participating in a community clean-up of an old graveyard, for instance, is not just a service. It is a physical act of reverence, As you gently clear away moss from a weathered inscription, you are not just maintaining a stone, you are honoring a story and acknowledging a life once lived. Some people feel drawn to leave a small, respectful offering, a wildflower or a smooth pebble, as a tangible sign of their visit and their acknowledgement of the past. These are not grand gestures, but they are profound. They transform you from an observer into a participant in an ongoing human story. This personal engagement reminds us that we are part of a vast continuum. The awe you feel today, the sorrow you acknowledge, the respect you show, these too are emotions that will, in their own way, become part of the silent record. What small, intentional step will you take to begin your own dialogue with the stones? This deeply personal journey of discovery holds immense value far beyond our individual experience, shaping how we understand our collective place in the world. A history lesson becomes a journey into the human heart when it begins with a simple stone. Students gathered around a replica of a rune stone are not just learning about Vikings, they are deciphering the pride, loss, or boastful swagger of the person who carved it. Educator Dr. Paul Simmons champions this method, where mapping local gravestones or analyzing the wear on a town's steps transforms history from a list of dates into a vibrant tapestry of feeling. A student tracing the letters of a child's epitaph from the 1700s is no longer memorizing a mortality rate. They are confronting the universal sorrow of a parent's grief, a feeling that resonates across centuries. This emotional approach fundamentally changes the questions we ask. Instead of simply learning when a monument was built, students investigate why it was built. What collective pride or shared trauma was a community trying to make permanent? The answer requires them to think critically, weaving together clues from art, social studies, and even psychology to understand the motivation behind the stone. This interdisciplinary lens makes learning sticky and deeply personal. A lesson on the Industrial Revolution gains new weight when paired with the soot-stained bricks of a factory worker's cottage, making the abstract struggle for workers' rights feel immediate and tangible. By connecting the joys and struggles of the past to their own emotional lives, students develop a profound sense of empathy. They begin to see historical figures not as distant names, but as people who laughed, feared, and hoped just as they do. This process does more than teach history. It cultivates compassionate, thoughtful citizens who understand that the human experience, in all its complexity, is our greatest shared inheritance. How might your own understanding of a historical event shift if you first learned about the emotions of the people who lived it? This powerful educational tool reveals a deeper truth, that listening to the whispers of the past can be a surprisingly potent form of healing for our own lives. A smooth, cool stone rests in a client's palm, becoming a tangible anchor for a feeling too complex for words. This is the heart of narrative stone therapy, a practice where the ancient stories we have been exploring become direct tools for modern emotional healing. Art therapists like Dr. Megan Taylor guide clients to see their own struggles reflected in the endurance of stone, using these powerful metaphors to process grief, build resilience, and explore identity. A person grappling with loss might be invited to select a stone that represents their sorrow, its solid, heavy weight giving a physical form to an abstract pain. They can then place it as part of a personal cairn, a symbolic act of building a new structure from their hardships, stone by stone. Another client working through anxiety might be given a smooth, water-worn pebble to hold during meditation, its cool, unyielding surface a focal point for grounding and calm amidst internal chaos. The therapeutic power lies in the metaphor. Stone does not shatter under pressure, it endures. It is transformed by time, yet its core remains. By drawing parallels between their personal journey and the geological narrative of a rock, clients can externalize their pain, view their challenges from a new perspective, and connect their individual story to something vast and timeless. This process leverages the innate human connection to the physical world to foster profound emotional regulation and insight. It demonstrates that history is far from a dusty academic subject. It is a living, breathing resource for personal growth, offering a framework to understand that our deepest struggles are part of the broader, enduring human experience. Have you ever held an object that helped you work through an emotional challenge, finding a quiet strength in its simple, physical presence? A 1,000-year-old runestone can still bring a tear to your eye because the person who carved it was not so different from you. The grief in that weathered inscription, the pride in that victory boast, these are not relics of a foreign world. They are the fundamental human experiences of love, loss, hope, and fear, emotions that have formed the bedrock of our shared existence since the dawn of consciousness. Sociologist Dr. Ryan O'Donnell points out that this timeless resonance is precisely why these stones hold such power in our present moment. In our fast-paced digital age, where feelings are often reduced to fleeting pixels on a screen, a stone offers a tangible, weighty connection to a deeper reality. It grounds us, a medieval love token, a simple pebble carved with initials, speaks directly to the same romantic longing that fills pop songs today. A cobblestone from a revolutionary barricade can inspire the same fierce passion for justice in a modern activist. This is the profound gift these stones give us. They are a mirror reflecting our own hearts across the centuries, proving that while our tools and technologies evolve at a dizzying pace, the core of what it means to be human remains beautifully, comfortingly constant. This understanding is the key to building a profound empathy that can leap across generations. When we recognize our own fears in the scratches on a prison wall, or our own parental joy in the worn carving of a child's toy on a grave, we shatter the illusion that the past is a separate country. We are all part of one long, continuous human story, each of us adding our own emotional chapter to the narrative. This naturally invites a moment of personal reflection. In a world obsessed with the new and the next, what emotional imprints are we creating for the future? What will our own stones, our buildings, our monuments whisper to our descendants 1,000 years from now? Will they sense our anxiety, our hope, our capacity for love? The timeless conversation between humanity and stone is far from over, and its future depends entirely on the choices we make today. A world is emerging where every weathered gravestone and ancient boundary marker has its own digital shadow, a permanent archive of the emotional stories it holds. This future for our understanding of the whispers beneath the stones is built on powerful collaborations, uniting local communities, technology experts, and scholars in a shared mission. Imagine a crowd-sourced storytelling platform where elders can record the oral histories tied to a specific standing stone, their voices and memories becoming a permanent part of its digital record. Picture virtual reality reconstructions that let you walk through a bustling medieval town square, not just seeing the stones but feeling the atmosphere of market day, hearing the echoes of a community's collective life. These are not distant dreams but active initiatives that can reveal entirely new emotional dimensions, allowing us to experience history with an empathy that text alone can never provide. Yet this vital work faces a pressing challenge. Environmental changes threaten to silence these whispers forever. Rising sea levels endanger coastal cairns and fishing shrines, while increasing erosion wears away the very inscriptions that hold our most poignant laments. This urgency makes proactive conservation a race against time, not just to save the physical objects, but to rescue the human feelings embedded within them. The most profound progress will come from integrating diverse perspectives. Indigenous knowledge about the living spirit of the land can illuminate the emotional significance of stones in ways that scientific analysis alone cannot grasp. Public contributions, the family stories and local legends passed down through generations, add irreplaceable layers of meaning to an archaeologist's findings. By weaving these many threads together, we ensure these emotional imprints are not merely preserved in a sterile database, but are actively enriched, becoming a more vibrant and inclusive tapestry for future generations to explore. This evolving field promises to do more than deepen our connection to the past. It forges a stronger bond between us in the present, united by the timeless emotions we all share. How will you add your voice to this collective effort? Perhaps you can photograph a local historic site, record a story your grandparents told you about a special place, or simply share your own emotional response to an ancient stone. Every contribution, no matter how small, becomes part of this grand, ongoing conversation. We have traveled through time, listening to the whispers beneath the stones. From the quiet laments held in gravestones to the revolutionary rocks echoing with cries for change, these emotional stories carved out of time remind us that history is not a cold collection of facts, but a living tapestry woven with the hopes, fears, and soaring joys of those who came before us. Each stone you encounter, whether a humble cobblestone or a towering monument, is a single page in the vast, unbound diary of humanity. It invites you to pause, to reflect, and to simply feel. As the philosopher Mircea Eliade once observed, the stone reveals itself as a hierophany. It shows something that is no longer stone. It becomes a window into a soul, a vessel for a prayer, a testament to a love that refused to be forgotten. Let these powerful narratives inspire you to explore the emotional layers in your own surroundings, to look for the hidden stories in the old brick of a local building or the smooth surface of a river rock in your hand. Appreciate the enduring power of human expression, a force so strong it can leave its mark on the very bones of the earth. We would love to hear your own experiences. Have you ever felt a deep connection to a historical stone? Share your story in the comments below and subscribe for more journeys into the heart of history. Thank you for joining this exploration. May you always hear the whispers